Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio. I am your host, Hal Shirtless. I am the co-founder and director of Camp Constitution, and please bear with me. I'm getting over a little chest cold. This program, I'm going to be discussing a very important topic, because I'd like to think all of our topics are important that we discuss here on our show. But it's going to be dealing with Common Core. But before I do that, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the camp itself, Camp Constitution, and its mission and what it does. Camp Constitution is an all-volunteer association. Was started back in 2009, I should say late 2008. It runs a week-long family camp, actually a week and a day, which is the camp is located in Rindge, New Hampshire, at the Toa-Nippie Christian Retreat Center, from this year's camp from July 12th to the 19th. So it's actually a week and a day. It's from Sunday afternoon to Sunday morning. And this year's camp, we have some really great instructors, a couple of new people, and some returning. Tom DeWeese of American Policy Center, who was my guest on last week's show, will be one of the featured instructors, along with Chris Ann Hall, who will be a guest on an upcoming radio show here, along with folks like the Patriot Pastor, Garrett Lear, Reverend Stevie Kraft, and many others. We got a few that probably have not been announced yet. And what do we do at this wonderful camp program? Well, we do a lot of things. We have some incredible classes, instruction. We also have a program for the young ones too, from ages 5 to 11. We have something called Patriot Camp. So there's intellectual activity for all ages. In addition to the classes and instruction and workshops, we have some field trips. This year we'll be taking a field trip to the Tea Party Museum, the location of the original Tea Party in Boston. The Toa-Nippie Retreat Center is very, very close. Well, it's about 70 miles from Boston. So we'll take an all-day field trip. We'll also get a chance to visit the Massachusetts State House, maybe even take in some type of debate if they're in session. And we also take a hike up Mount Monadnock, which is an optional hike. So it's a very busy week. And if you're interested in learning more, visit the camp website, campconstitution.net, and you can get the dates and camp. You can download a camp application. We also do have tuition assistance available for those who may like to come to camp and maybe don't have enough money. We've never turned away a worthy camper or family for lack of funds. So please keep that in consideration. Also, if you like what we do, and maybe you're not able to attend the camp, but you like what we do, we would encourage you to look us up to help us, maybe become a sponsor. We definitely mention your company on the radio show, but also your business will be listed on our website as a sponsor. Now let's get into the topic Common Core. First, I'd like to qualify this by saying that my wife and I are a homeschooling family, and we have been homeschooling for many, many years now, and we really encourage that. We think that we have very little option, especially here living in the city of Boston. The public schools, or should I say government schools, are rotten to the core, rotten to the Common Core, and we strongly encourage people. And we have actually been encouraging people in our church over the years to look into homeschooling as not just an option, but really the only thing to do. Especially if you're a Christian. You know, we read in the Old Testament, King Solomon says that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, or the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Yet we send our children into these government schools where they do not have the fear of the Lord. They just the opposite. They are humanistic schools that promote all of the values that you'd expect a humanist to promote, whether it be socialism, abortion, homosexuality, evolution, etc. Just the opposite of what a Christian should be learning. And I know there are a lot of well-intentioned folks that say, well, our children should be involved. They should be have an influence among their peers. Well, that might be good advice for an adult in that environment, maybe an adult teacher. But to put children in that environment, putting them in harm's way, I would not say it's a very wise thing. I once had a friend who at that time was not married, and now he's married with children. I'm sure he has a different view, but he thought that Christians should put their children in public schools. So they'll be good witnesses and such. I then asked him if, on the way to church on a Sunday morning, if I were to drop my children off at the Unitarian Sunday school, would he have a problem with that? He said, well, of course he would, because Unitarians don't teach this. They teach pretty much the opposite of what a Trinitarian would teach. And I said, would you be justified in questioning my Christianity if I did that? He said, well, absolutely. So I said, why would you do it 5 days a week for 6 or 7 hours a day if you wouldn't do it on a Sunday morning? Because as my good friend Sam Blumenfeld, the pioneer of the homeschool movement, said that Unitarian public schools, the government schools, are really nothing more than Unitarian prep schools. So let's get on to Common Core. We've heard a lot about Common Core over the last few years, and thankfully there's been a lot of outrage around the country on the subject of Common Core, and it's sort of good to see that. Good to see parents stepping up to the plate and finally realizing that something fundamentally wrong with the public schools. For many years, the parents have just been sort of, well, yeah, we don't like what they have, but they do, but what are you going to do about it? But Common Core is really, it's just so outrageous when children are coming home with these crazy math problems, or I should say solutions to these crazy math methods to get answers to these math problems. The math problems themselves aren't crazy. It's the way they get the answers, or coming home from their English classes with government manuals, and I'm saying, what's going on here? And in some cases, they're coming home with little marks on their bodies, like a young lady came home, I think she was in New York City, and she had a blotch around her ankle, not her ankle, but her wrist. And I think the mother said, well, what happened to you? And she said, oh, they put this device on us. Well, the device was a means to measure their stimulus, which is what basically like a lie detector test. And there's been some cases where the children are brought into the guidance counselor, and they ask them if do the parents own a gun. And if they did own a gun, would you feel safe if somebody removed it, and these types of things? Now, to be honest, I should say, to be frank here, these things have happened long before the introduction of Common Core. There's been a lot of these things happening for years. It isn't something new, and that's why you see a very large homeschool movement that's been growing in leaps and bounds for a number of years. Homeschooling one time was regarded as you either lived on a lighthouse or you were a kook. Now it's gone mainstream, and so let me just define Common Core a little bit. Common Core is an abbreviated term used to refer to the Common Core State Standards Initiative. And by the way, when you hear a government program and the word initiative, you know it's top down, and you know that it's going to cost lots of money, be ineffective to its stated goal, and most likely restrict freedom or take freedom away. So a set of national standards for English and mathematics with science guidelines forthcoming, written and copyrighted by the National Governors Association, known as abbreviation NGA. Now, the Council of Chief State School Officers. Now, these two entities are basically political entities or lobbyist groups that have really nothing to do with education. National Governors Association, and let me point this out too, this NGA, National Governors Association, also endorses an Article 5 convention. And they say we need to restore the states' rights. We need to get the power back. Yet they jump on board with this top-down federal-driven program. So someone's being dishonest. This organization that's telling us on one hand they want to get their states back, get their power back, and then they push Common Core. Not only do they push it, but they own the copyright or a portion of it, right? It was backed and funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, $150 million. Whatever this entity funds, you know it's going to advance globalism, socialism, and many negative things. So the minute you see this Gates money involved, back off. You know it's bad, right? These standards were adopted by 46 states, sight unseen, in exchange for race to the top money, or a waiver from No Child Left Behind. I heard that expression, no child left behind, and some teachers said, yes, no child left behind and no teacher left standing. Now, first off, there should be no money coming from the federal government to promote education, period. But this is something that's been going on a long time. And so 2009, 2010, the federal government said, tell you what, you wonderful states, you take the money we give you, and a couple of years from now, you must take this sight unseen Common Core standards. And 46 states did. And incidentally, many of these states are so-called Republican conservative states. So when people tell you, oh, we don't have to worry about an Article 5 convention because we have so many Republicans that run states. They have a 2/3 majority in all of the states' capitals. Republicans run the states here. And, well, Republicans do a lot of bad things too, and this is an example here. So now these two entities hold the copyright, and you can only change or modify the program about 15%. And you cannot go to your school board or to your legislature or to the governor in your state because they have no control over it. You have to go to the folks that hold the copyright, you see. And they're not going to give you any wiggle room here. So this is a complete federal control of education and corresponding loss of state and local autonomy, input and control, as well as loss of parental control and influence. But other than that, it's not so bad, right? Of course, the federal government is in complete violation of the Constitution and the rules that they've made, the laws that they've made when they create this national curriculum. So they're kind of clever about it too. They go, we didn't create it; we're just promoting it. You see. So the Race to the Top application, the initial vehicle through which Common Core was imposed on the states, requires the applicants to adopt a set of content standards that are substantially identical across all states in a consortium. This means that states must adopt Common Core word for word, and they, as I said earlier, they may supplant it by about 15%, but that's it. And so it's sort of this national boilerplate. Everybody around the country will have the same exact core standards. And, of course, there are different states, different regions, different emphasis on things, and that's what free people can do. But this isn't about free people. It's just one size fits all. Now, this is something interesting. If you go onto YouTube and you put Common Core math problem, to give an example of how ludicrous this is. There's a nice young lady, teacher, and she's speaking to a group of other teachers. And she says, we're not really worried if we ask the student 3 times 4 equals 11. She said, we're not concerned about the final answer as long as the process is correct. Now, I would love to be her accountant. Just think how ridiculous that is. Arithmetic, mathematics, you have to deal with exacts. You know, when you're building something and if you're off an inch, that bridge collapses, right? You have to be, it's an exact science. So the very fact that our children will be taught that you don't have to worry about the right answer, or in some cases, there's you have these nice little groups, and the group comes up with an answer. And let's say there's 4 or 5 in the group, and little Johnny says, no, 3 times 4 is 12. It will always be 12. And everyone else says, no, we say it's 11. Well, guess who's wrong? It's little Johnny, because he disagreed with the group. So to adhere to the group thing is more important than coming up with the right answer. Then there's another video you can find. It's just a Common Core math problem. And there's this very intelligent little girl, I don't know, about 8 or 9 years old, and the mother is asking her to do the problem that she had at school, this Common Core math problem. And of course, she doesn't do it all. I mean, they do speed up the process a little bit, but it's a what would be a long division problem, and takes her about 14 to 15 minutes to solve the problem Common Core style, and she comes up with a wrong answer. And by the way, the mother is a math major. She's a math teacher, a PhD in mathematics, and she could not figure out how the process this girl used to come up with the wrong answer. And then she said to her daughter, she said, now do the program solve the problem the way I taught you. And she did the typical long division problem, and she solved it in about 2 minutes, and she got the right answer. So why is these Common Core people, the people that are pushing this, why are they deliberately giving people this type of program where the wrong answers are almost encouraged? Let's see. So again, these can be found on YouTube. Now, one of the biggest problems with Common Core is the data mining. And the data mining and the intrusive record keeping. From the minute your child sets foot in that government school, or even a private school, if they adopt Common Core standards. In a lot of private schools, Christian schools, parochial schools, Lutheran schools have adopted Common Core. They don't need to, but they have. So they take a test, and you get a 0 on that test. If you have a discipline problem, it could be an innocent little thing, like you tell a girl that she's cute, or you pull her ponytail. That's sexual harassment. That stays on your record. And who has access to these records? Well, you certainly don't. But the government does. Maybe a potential employer may have access to these records. And they have these ridiculous record-keeping facilities around the country. One of the things here, promoting grit, tenacity, and perseverance, critical factors for success in the 21st century. And here you'll see facial expression cameras, posture analysis seat, pressure mouse, wireless skin conductance sensor. Now, why is the teachers or Common Core people so interested in the responses of children? Well, what are they looking for? Let's say that you happen to be a Christian and you teach your children that abortion is wrong, that homosexuality is wrong, that certain values that you teach them that are in sharp contrast to the Common Core folks. Well, they're going to be able to find out. Let's say they get little Johnny and they put one of these little devices on him, and they say, well, Johnny, we're promoting a campaign here we're promoting the gay lifestyle. And the child responds. You can see the blood pressure goes up, or whatever part indicates that he's not too happy, he's uncomfortable with this. Well, guess what, folks? Child abuse is happening in that house. That's right, because you are teaching them things that are causing a little stress in little Johnny's life. And this is a reality. This isn't something that may happen. It's happening now. And they have these national sexuality standards. You know, it's interesting. A number of years ago, I was on a flight somewhere, flying from Boston to the Midwest somewhere, and on the plane was a lady, probably in her 30s, with 4 or 5 of her own children, and she had a little Chinese baby that was very badly burnt. So I asked her what happened. She said that she and her husband are missionaries in China, and they found this little baby in the woods in China. They have this one-child policy, one child per couple policy. I've heard that there's been some waivers to that, but nevertheless, that was something that was enforced. And if you're not authorized to have that second baby, you can get the abortions will be forced. Well, in many cases, if it's a female, since they figure a girl baby is not as helpful, a woman may not be as helpful to the family, so they'd rather have a boy, and they throw the poor little baby in the woods, and the woods caught fire. Anyway, in my conversation with her, she said she would rather raise her children in communist China than raise them here in the United States. And I was a little shocked to hear that. I says, why would you do that? And she said, because they don't sexualize the children, especially at an early age. So there is an age of innocence. second graders and sixth graders and fourth graders should not be exposed to this. And there's even a lot of people on the left that don't like this. So here, the National Sexuality Education Standards were further informed by the network of CDC's, Center for Disease Control's health education curriculum. So K to 12, and let's see. By the end of the second grade, identify different kinds of family structures. And, of course, the most important one would be the two men or two women, two homosexual, two lesbians. Provide examples of how friends, family, media, society, and culture influence ways in which boys and girls think they should act. Instruction by qualified sexuality education teachers is essential for student achievement. So they're going to get these perverts teaching your children. Students need opportunities to engage in cooperative and active learning strategies. Yes. How to put a condom on, and that's what they've been doing this for right along. By the way, this isn't something new here. Let's see. Okay. Now here was a poster. The poster. I'm going to put this program on YouTube, so I'll be able to put the poster up. This was I think it was in Kansas, Shawnee, Kansas. This is Bible Belt area, folks. Right. This was a middle school, the Hawker Grove Middle School. And you can probably find this online on yourself. How do people express their sexual feelings? Okay. Oral sex, sexual fantasy, caressing, anal sex, dancing, massage, masturbation, holding hands, talking, cuddling on the couch, grinding, saying I like you, talking, vaginal intercourse. Oh, well, that must be, that's weird. Kissing, touching each other's genitals, hugging. And by the way, in their eyes, these are all the same. There's no one is valid as the other. And this was, and for our knowledge, it's still there. This was put up there about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and it's still in the school. And this is the kind of garbage that they're pushing. I mean, I can imagine maybe 10 to even 20 years ago, anyone putting that up would be subject to arrest, and the parents would run these teachers out of town. So by the end of the second grade, students should be able to use proper names for body parts, including male and female anatomy. By the end of the fifth grade, define sexual orientation, someone of the same gender or different gender. So they're going to learn all about transgender and all kinds of things like that. Let's see. No one will escape the Common Core's reach, whether they attend public or private school, or if they homeschool. Well, why is that? Because many publishers of homeschool materials have announced their alignment with the Common Core standards. Obamacare includes mandates for assessing all children's education and development. You see, so it's a very difficult thing to get away from, and because the SAT test will eventually, and very soon, reflect Common Core values. And in our home schools, some of them opt for the GED, and I think that will also be happening, that the GEDs will reflect Common Core. So in the textbooks, I understand Bob Jones University is one of the largest Christian homeschool textbook publishers. They've already adopted Common Core. I know that the Lutheran schools, the Missouri Synod, as a matter of fact, we experienced that when some friends of ours tried to put on a program in the greater Albany area, Albany, New York, that is, on the subject of Common Core, and the folks that run the function room, it's owned by the Lutheran Church. They asked what the program was, and when they heard there was Common Core, or a program to expose Common Core, they said, well, that won't sit well with our trustees because we've adopted Common Core. So, and the thing is, they don't have to adopt Common Core, they just do. So, now, when I discuss Common Core, I do not want you to think that we just want to get rid of Common Core. We need to get rid of the federal, or I should say, federal control of education, period. And it wasn't too long ago, I was at a Stop the Common Core rally. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so I got to apologize for that. Anyway, this Stop the Common Core rally was in Boston at the State House. Now, if you're in front of the State House, you'll see to your left a statue of Horace Mann. And it was a pretty well-attended event. There were some state legislators there, surprisingly enough, and also a former gubernatorial candidate who ran in the primary, Mark Fisher, all good people. And one of the presenters was paying homage to Horace Mann. Well, I was there. I wasn't speaking at the group. I wasn't addressing the group, but I was kind of worked the crowd. I had some information to hand out, DVDs and some articles on the subject, and I spoke to quite a few of the people, and I said, Horace Mann is part of the. He was the one that got the ball rolling. We shouldn't pay him any homage. We should be condemning him and exposing what he did. You see, Horace Mann is known as the father of public education or government education. He was the one that he went to Prussia, Germany, and he came back. We're talking 1840s, early 1850s. He came back and said, "I've seen the future." I'm paraphrasing. Prussia had state schools, compulsory education. So every student, every child had to go to that state school in Prussia. We didn't have any compulsory education laws in our country. We had a great educational system. We were one of the most educated groups of people in the world without any help from the Fed or federal government or the state governments. But within about 20 years, and we're talking 2 generations away from the founding fathers that gave us this Constitution, states had decided to put their children in institutions 5 hours, 5 days a week. Of course, as time went on, there was more and more restrictions and what have you. But that was the beginning. And it's the notion, as I said earlier when the show started, that the purpose of state school is to promote good statists. Now, initially, you still had Bible reading and prayer, and it was relatively good for years, but it was just the beginning. And interesting that the Unitarians worked along with the Trinitarian Protestants to get their kids in public schools and get the Catholics out. They worried about the Catholics, so they used a lot of the Protestants in those days, and even some today probably have some distrust of Catholics and make it work both ways. And they didn't want to have a parochial or Catholic influence in the public schools, so they sort of Protestantized them. And the Unitarians just took the Trinitarians for suckers. They thought they were just, and you can read actually some books published 100 years ago, anti-Catholic books published by the Unitarians to encourage getting the Protestant Christians to go along with their public education. And there's a couple of great books on that. One of the best books is written by Sam Blumenfeld, the NEA, Trojan Horse in American Education. I'll have Sam on as a guest pretty soon, probably in a week or two. And he did all the research about this group of people back over 100 years ago that were planning, as he used the word plotting, which is the exact word, which is the right word. And he also, Sam Blumenfeld, did a lot of work on a man named John Dewey, known as the father of progressive education. John Dewey wrote an essay as far back as 1898 where he's denounced high literacy, said it's not needed. And so way back when they were advocating the dumbing down. And dumbing down is also a topic, well, the name of the book by Charlotte Isabet, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And that's an important resource as well. So I would encourage you to do a search. Look up the name Samuel Blumenfeld, or I think Charlotte Isabet's website is deliberatelydumbingdown.org, and you'll find all kinds of information about the history of public education and government education. Well, we're running out of time. It's a short half hour here. I just want to thank you for listening, and I want to encourage you to look into our camp program, campconstitution.net. And this program is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Monday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for listening.